Welcome to Chapter 2 of the Conduct and Practices Handbook course. In this chapter, I am going to be going over ethical decision making. So to start off, the chapter does go over ethics versus morals. I did go over this in Chapter 1 some, but I will go over it again. So first off, ethics, it is the rules or standards governing the behavior of a particular group or profession. And it's a set of moral principles or values and the study of the general nature of morals and the moral choices made by individuals. So that's what ethics is, whereas morals, these are the rules and habits of a society's conduct that are established according to perceived standards of right and wrong. So again, you see that ethics is sort of relative to the individual, whereas morals is more so related to society and societal beliefs. And so next is the idea of ethics versus rules. So an industry's rules and regulations, they set out standards that participants must follow. People follow rules because they must do so, not necessarily because they believe it is the right or moral thing to do. So the main thing between rules and ethics is that rules are something that people must follow, where ethics are things that people follow because they believe they are the right thing to do. Next, we look at values, ethics, and laws. So values are the individual or cultural measures of the worth we place in certain ideas and behavior. They reflect the importance we attach to other people, money, work, leisure, and family. Ethics are a set of moral principles that govern our behavior. Our personal ethical stance is built on our personal values, and the ethics of a society are built on cultural values. And then laws, they are not synonymous with ethics, but they can be seen as contained within and growing out of a society's overall ethical sensibility. Next, we will look at the nature of values. So values do have several common characteristics. First off, they are beliefs, they're not facts. They are long-lasting, not fleeting. However, they are not fixed and unchangeable. So they do last a long time, and it's not something where you just feel as if you believe in something one day and it changes the next. It really does stick with you. However, they can be changed. Although that might be difficult to do, they can be. They also guide your goals and behavior on both a personal and corporate level. Next, we're going to look at a unified value system. So a unified value system is one in which end values and means values mutually reinforce and support each other, and both people and corporations get into trouble when their means values do not align with their end values. So this is pretty important to understand the difference between the two. End values include a sense of accomplishment, service to people, security. So it could be like a world at peace or something like that. And they can be viewed as goals towards which we strive. You can look at them as end goals. Whereas means values include ambition, openness, or competence, which can be viewed as actions we take to achieve our goals. So for example, an end goal might be a world at peace, whereas a means value would be something like you'd be working to strive towards a world at peace through something like being ambitious and honest, respectful, just sort of reflecting those values into the community to hopefully reach that end value that you're striving for. Next, we will look at the importance of value clarification. We're going to look at this in three different sectors. First off is organization. So value clarification, it is quite important in an organization. It will provide a sense of common direction for all members and guidelines for their daily behavior. It'll also provide a sense of stability and continuity in a rapid changing environment. Value clarifications is also important in individuals. It will provide direction and influence your ability to make decisions. It'll also influence your perception on people, success, and ethical behavior. Within society, value clarifications influences how we think and act. It also brings up the idea of ethical relativism, and this states that there is no such thing as a universal moral principle that governs our behavior. So it is the idea that as everything is relative, situational, and negotiable, and also personal. So each new situation requires us to redefine our values and actions, with each of us having an equal say on what is right or wrong. So this is an interesting idea. It sort of leads to the belief where right versus wrong, or if you do have a incorrect ethical view, then it might actually be harmful in the business. So the example that it gives in the text is sort of like a relative view is, for example, I know how the market works. Whereas a situational view might be my client is unsophisticated and will follow any advice I give to him. And if you have that me first stance, you might think this, and it could lead you to actually getting your client to follow bad advice, basically. Advice that will help you personally and not the client. So this is if you do have a personal value of greed, and it is sort of that idea that ethical relativism, it means that everyone sort of is out for themselves and they all have their own personable beliefs. So it is important for value clarification in society to avoid things like that. And ethical dilemmas. So these arise when we are faced with two or more choices and we must make an ethical decision. So first off, there's the truth versus loyalty ethical dilemma, and the values of honesty or integrity clash with the values of commitment, personal responsibility, or promise keeping. So for example, if a client asks about the performance of a fund, and if it is the best on the market, truth demands that you say there are better investments, but loyalty to your client demands that you support the in-house product. So that is if you are someone like a fund manager, you would want to support your fund company, but truth to that institutional client would be that there are better funds out there. Individual versus group. So this is the rights and values when they clash with each other. And for example, suppose you obtained 10,000 shares of a new issue that appears to be excellent. Do you offer these shares to your best client, or do you offer it as a lottery system or lottery style to all of your clients? So it sort of is that clash between should you help out the individual clients, your best clients, or should you make it fair and help out the whole group of clients? So short-term versus long-term ethical dilemmas. This is when a conflict arises when immediate needs or desires run counter to future goals or prospects. So means values clash with your end values. So for example, suppose a client wants to invest in a security, but you have doubts about its suitability for that client. If the client insists, do you go along with it or refuse because it does not suit the client's long-term goals? Next, we have justice versus mercy, and this is basically when the values of fairness, equity, and righteousness conflict with the values of compassion, empathy, and love. So for example, consider you have an employee that is really busy and must get their CE credits, but she does not have the time to obtain them. Then they go ahead and they get a colleague who already did the course to write the quiz for her. Do you discipline her, or do you grant mercy by telling her to do it as soon as she can to avoid cheating in the future? So it sort of is that justice versus mercy dilemma. So we are all going to come across some ethical dilemmas no matter what you are doing in the workplace. These always will come up. And there is sort of some frameworks as to how you can go through this decision-making process with ethical dilemmas, which we will go through next. So the ethical decision-making process, first, it's a good idea to recognize that there is a moral issue. So you will need to start by doing that. You'll then determine whose moral issue is it. Next, you'll want to gather the facts and then test for right versus wrong issues. And you do this by using one of three tests. So first is the legal test. This is when you ask yourself whether it is illegal or against the industry rules to do so. Next is the front page test, and this deals with reputation. So if your behavior in the specific behavior became public knowledge, how would the public perceive your actions? That's a nice little thought experiment that you can test yourself in. Finally, you have the mom test, which is when you must consider how comfortable you would be revealing your decision to those who are close to you. So based on these three tests, you can sort of figure out which one would be the best course of action to solve your ethical dilemma. Number 5 is test for right versus right paradigms. So at this stage, you should ask the following questions to determine which core values are in conflict. So is this a truth versus loyalty dilemma? Is it that individual versus group dilemma, short-term versus long-term dilemma, or justice versus mercy dilemma? And we went through that in a previous slide. So you can figure out the dilemma that it might be. If it is a right versus right dilemma, and you can sort of choose which value you want to value the most. Step number 6 is apply the resolution principles. So the resolution principles consist of 4 modes of problem solving. So you have your end-based ethical thinking. This is like which solution brings the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Next, you have rule-based ethical thinking, so which solution results in a suitable rule for others to follow in similar situations. You also have social contract-based ethical thinking, so which solution results in the most harmonious relationship among the various groups. You also have personalistic-based ethical thinking, so which solution aligns most closely with my authentic self. After this, you'll reach stage number 7, which is make the decision. So basically, you can go through each of these tests and sort of conclude which one you would prefer, or which solution you would prefer. After, you would want to reflect on the process. You can sort of learn a little bit about yourself by doing that. So that is the ethical decision-making process. We do have one last slide here as well. This is the resolution principles. And you do see this in number 6 of the ethical decision-making process. I did go over them, but you can look at them here if you didn't quite catch what I said. So anyway, that is everything for Chapter 2 of the Conduct and Practices Handbook. Again, I really hope you enjoyed this type of video and this review. If you did, make sure to let me know in the comments, and also stay tuned for Chapter 3.